Hello everyone. This is Joseph Brownlee. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Me, myself, and MDD. Real Talk on Sunday. This is a series I'm doing on my bio, my struggle. Over 50 years suffering from MDD, better known as maladaptive daydreaming. How you doing today? If you've been following me and watching me on YouTube, I really appreciate you if you just subscribe or leave comments on my channel if it's something you'd like to watch or something you'd like to keep subscribing to, and you're getting some type of benefits or help with this channel. Please join this channel, subscribe, anything like that. You're welcome and free, no matter who you are, no matter what faith or whatever like that, and what you believe. But if you just need some help uh, with mental disorder, this is the channel. If you want to learn the Bible and become a Christian, this is the channel. You want to learn how to rightly divide God's word, this is the channel. You want to talk about movies and talk about different things or different topics and subjects, sports, looked at in a biblical perspective, but very clean, no dogmatic, not beating you upside the head with the Bible or not judging you. This is the channel. God bless you all. Me, myself, and MDD. My struggle with MDD. I advise you to watch my previous videos that I put up there. All right, let's get right into this. I promised you I was going to look at MDD with a biblical perspective when it comes to the causes and the activities that may and may not be part of MDD. We looked at quite a bit of it scientifically, but what I want to do, I want to read something first that I think is very important to many out there that need to look at this more when you take your quizzes or you do your own self-evaluation to see do you have MDD. Try your best. Listen to me carefully to understand before you start daydreaming what other comorbidities mean, what other things you kind of struggling with. Was it friendship, attention deficits, or different things like that, or certain movements or concentration and different things like that before you really start getting into your melodreams and stuff like that. I like to call it. This is not a scientific name, but I like to call it melodreams. Uh, you know, get into those things and find out because your MDD could be, and I'm not a clinician, I'm not a licensed doctor, but I'm just going by my experience and what I'm hearing from Dr. Ellie Somers and other researchers, outstanding researchers out there. Thank God for those researchers. That it could be a correlation, it could be a connection between MDD and ADHD or even OCD or even autism. I'm not saying this, but that high stat of 77% of MDDers that got diagnosed out of 100, 77% was also have spectrums of or diagnosed with ADHD. That's amazing. So there's a big a big tie-in with MDD and ADHD. Let's talk about ADHD. Let's get to this. Then I'm gonna hit some an important verse that I'm sure a lot of believers use this verse, sometimes out of context, but it's very important. Now, first of all, what is ADHD? I looked all this up. I'm doing a study on ADHD myself. I'm going through that course because that's something that I believe I struggle with, no doubt, and you may too. So let's talk about ADHD, then we're going to get right back to MDD. Let's go through this. First of all, ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder, a group of conditions that affect the functioning of the brain. I want you to listen to this because you may be struggling with this. You may be. Like ADHD, autism, ASD, dyslexia, Tourette syndrome. These disorders are characterized by difficulties with impulse control, communication, or learning. They may have difficulty focusing and organizing and completing tasks, difficult controlling emotions, interacting with others, and processing information. Everything they read here was me in my past. That's all me. I talked about that earlier in my earlier videos. Let's keep going. I'm going to go past the treatment because I'm not here trying to treat no one. I'm not going to do that. That's not in my field. But two, what is ADHD? I just told you that. The acronym, the full name of ADHD is called Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. I don't try to say all that because I get too tongue-tied already because of my speech impediment. Okay? Now, listen to this. Meaning difficult focusing and controlling impulsive behavior. It is typically diagnosed in childhood and is more common in boys. I did not know that. I think autism is more common in boys, especially black American boys. Why, I don't know. But it is. Then girls. Exact cause unknown, but it is believed to be a combination of genetic and environmental factors. ADHD is diagnosed based on a person's behavior, divided into three main subtypes. Inattending, you don't attend things a lot, you don't pay attention, you don't attend things a lot. Hyperactivity, I don't have too much of that. Impulsive and combined difficulty paying attention, following directions, impulsivity, and disorganization. I had all of that, right? Then they talk about the history of ADHD. In 1902, the British physician George Steele was the first to describe the disorder, noting that some children were inattentive, hyperactive, and impulsive. Then in 1930s to 1940, ADHD was thought to be caused by poor parenting and dysfunctional home environments. And this continued to be the dominant belief until the 1970s, which was known then as hyperkinetic. I didn't know ADHD used to be called hyperkinetic. See, it's good to research this stuff. Now, I read this because that's just a little scientific breakdown of ADHD. To go deeper, you have to understand the brain, which I'm also doing a study on that. You have to understand a little bit about neuroscience if you want to go deeper, understand how the brain works. I'm very interested in that, man. With ADHD, MDD, so I'm very interested in that, man. People. Still got slang in me. It's very interesting, but most all the diagnoses or the probable cause is mostly scientific, even from Ellie Summers. It's never in a biblical perspective, but it's not saying it's bad, but it's mostly scientific, okay, that causes ADHD, OSD, autism and different things like that. But let's not try to get into all of them. I'm just talking about the ones that I know that's close to my heart, which is MDD, maladaptive daydreaming, ADD. Now, the difference between ADD and ADHD, ADD is just attention deficit disorder. You just have you have everything that you have in ADHD except the hyperactivity. That's the difference between ADHD, so they just usually say ADHD. Let me say that again. The difference between ADHD and ADD is you just been diagnosed with the attention deficit disorder. All the things I read off just exclude the hyperactivity, which the H, that's what comes to ADHD, but they just in a hole from what I heard when I was looking at this broadcast. ADHD is just mainly what they call it now. They don't use ADD a lot, okay? Now, for my Christians out there, my believers that use this verse a lot, I want to look at, finally, that I don't hear too much about, but when I go to a Christian station, I'm usually disappointed. Got a lot of young people out there just guessing and saying, God done this, God stopped this, God told me this and everything. I don't have a stomach for that. Because first of all, they say these things out of ignorance, not knowing what God is doing and what God is not doing today when it comes to the believer. I'm not traveling to everybody that's not of the faith of a Christian, but I'm just disappointed in some YouTube diagnosis of what God told him to do to get rid of ADHD, and I disagree with that because I know the way God is doing today under grace, under the dispensation of grace. Okay, let's read the scripture here. Okay, all this noise, motorcycles. I'm going to talk about that too. Another problem that I'm having, the older I get is sound. A lot of noise, I can't handle a lot of noise no more, especially phones, speakerphones. I'm going to talk about that too because I'm 61 and more things agitate me more. Loud noises, phones and different things like that, and obnoxious sounds, it irritates me now. Really screechy sounds, there's almost like the autism in me. It bothers me very much. But let me read. I'm going to get back to. Let me read something here. Let's go to 2 Corinthians 10 and 5, a famous verse that many believers quote, including myself. Some, many out of context. Now, I'm going to relate, I could talk about demons and all this stuff, but I'm not going to get into demons because I'm not, that would take more time to get into demonic activities and different things like that, which I do not deny at all. But let's be realistic of what God is doing today. 2 Corinthians 10 and 5. Let's go to 3 first, because I love context. For though we walk in the flesh, King James Version, then I'm going to read out the Living Bible, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. Number 5, this is the verse. Casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Okay? And having a readiness to revenge all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. Now let's read out the Living Bible, starting with 3. We are human, but we don't wage war as humans do. 4. We use God's mighty weapons and not worldly weapons to knock down the strongholds of human reasoning and to destroy the arguments. 5. We destroy every proud obstacle that keeps people from knowing God. We capture their rebellious thoughts and teach them to obey Christ. 6. And after you have become fully obedient, we will punish everyone who remains disobedient. That's the Living Bible. I like the King James Version. Now, the reason I read that out of the Bible, some of you probably don't even want to hear the Bible, but I'm a Christian. I got to put things in a biblical perspective. If this ain't for you, you can go to another channel that talks only about scientific things when it comes to MBD. But I got to look at it all in a biblical perspective. And I advise you to stay here because it's not what you think I'm thinking and what I'm going to say when it comes to a Christian look at it, because you see so many other wrongly advice from a lot of Christians and telling you to use certain verses and do the first 3, 4, 5 step and all that. No, I'm not into that, Now, no doubt, first of all, when it comes to MDD or ADHD, since I read about ADHD, scientifically, it starts with the brain, the imbalance of the brain. I can't break it all down. I'm not that good at that. It starts with your mind. It starts with your psyche. No doubt about that. It's a lot of things that I have, but I don't have time to go into a deep study. I'm not doing is to do a deep study of comorbidities. I want to just talk about MDD and how I believe it correlates with ADHD or maybe something else. You got OCD or maybe even autism. But let's just stick to ADHD and maladaptive daydream because that's what's correlating with me. I have no doubt about that. Now, the reason I looked at it both ways, scientifically and biblically, that's the fair way to look at it, is because the strongholds, the Bible, in context, is talking about. Yes, let's read that again. I'm gonna try to get through this as fast as I can. Casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing to captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Now, that's spiritual warfare. This is the teachings of the Apostle Paul. Now, many believers, when they hear spiritual warfare, they think about signs and wonders and different things and demons and all that coming out. Now, a lot of that was going on in time past. And you still got a demonic activity, not only here in the United States, but in different countries. Like we're practicing voodoo and hoodoo and all that. So demonic activity is still real. Even though signs and wonders and all that is not in the body of Christ, for a good reason, there's still demonic activity and things like that in the United States, because people like to live in the United States too. You know there all this demonic and worship and all this different type of stuff going on in the United States. Yes, that's not normal. And some of these people are being influenced by the prince of the power of the air, which is Satan. Satan is the little g, the god of this world. Okay, the prince of the power of air. He's the god of this world. If some of you believers didn't know that. So believe it, there's a lot of motivation and motives and spirituality going on in the world. There also is people are still today, no doubt, still somewhat possessed by demonic activity. It's around the world, no doubt about that. I'm going somewhere with that. So I want you to understand I'm not excluding spiritual or demonic influences and a lot of in some mental disorders. I'm not excluding that in everything. So I want you to understand that I'm not excluding that believer. I'm talking to Christians now that think I am. I'm not excluding that, all right? What I am saying, when you talking to people that's not a believer, that's not a Christian, the last thing they want to hear, or rather, the last thing they want to hear is that you sinning and you got a demon in you. That's why you do those things. That would terrify a lot of people, unless that's what they're looking for, because you got spirit groups out there that looks for the activity of Satan. But I'm just talking about the person that's struggling with MDD, not a doctor daydreaming, and they hear somebody say, first of all, you sinning, they already nervous. And then they don't know what you mean by sinning. Unless you're talking to another believer, know it, or they think they know. But if you go to an unbeliever and you start talking about demons and spirits and stuff like that, some will believe, most will not accept that. But you have these people that already think they possessed. It depends what culture and what upbringing they was in. Real talk. Okay. Now, no doubt about it that there's a malfunction in our heads why we do what we do. Does not mean that it's spiritual or it's demonic. Okay? Let me tell you why, excuse me. Woo! All right. I love my Diet Pepsi. But pulling down strongholds and imaginations. You go back then, what was Paul talking about? Keeping our mind pure, keeping our mind clear from the wrong things, from spiritual wrong influences, from wrong doctrines, from wrong teachers and everything like that, because in that time, those things was kind of prevalent, in Paul's time, especially wrong doctrine and different things like that. So you got to put that in perspective when the Bible talks about that. Under Paul's teaching, not talking about casting out demons or like Jesus did, casting out lunatics and whatever like that. We don't know exactly what was the lunatics and different things, but those people had demons in them then. Jesus was casting out demons. A lot of believers use that as what's wrong with some mental people today, but most of it is not. Jesus was casting out demons and lunatics. He made a difference between lunatic and then he was casting out demons. So it was, people was blind, it was born blind, etc. Okay, Joe, where are you going with this? All right. Under grace. First of all, since the fall of man, I'm going to get to this real fast. I don't have time to teach the whole thing. Since the fall of man, sin and death came into the world. The fall of Adam. Adam and Eve disobeyed. Adam was the one that really the curse came down on because he was the one God told. And sin came into the world. And it's almost like he gave the keys to Satan. Okay? Now, since the fall of man, sin entered the world. Believers, I want you to understand the one throwing out, casting out, and all this stuff. Sin and white people, some of you believe that they might be spirit, whatever. I told you both sides. Okay? Now, the why, people may ask, people was born this way. Why do people come out this way? Why people are deformed? Why do people have these physical ailments? Why do people suffer mentally with autism, ADHD, or maladaptive daydreaming like myself? Why? How come God never done nothing about that? That's another teaching in itself as well. See, it's so much, but I know a lot of you are not Christians, so I can go deeper to this, but I'm not going to now. That's not that important now. But all I can say is when you look at it in a biblical perspective, which I'm going to always go first, and why I don't fall on being possessed by demons and spirits or you sinning and stuff like that, because when you're born in sin, like everyone was born in sin, since the fall of man, every human being was born into sin. What came with that? See, Adam and Eve was perfect. But when they fell and disobeyed God and fell into sin, they became imperfect. What do that mean, Joe? Not only the people became imperfect after them, the grass, the trees, the animals, everything became imperfect. That's why you have grass, you have deformed grass. You have out of shape trees. You have animals that somewhat deformed some way. See, as well as humans. In the head, you have animals that have brain tumors. You have animals that have mental issues. All that the same as humans. When sin entered the world, it brought imperfectness. Had nothing to do with no demon. Satan became the prince of the power of the air. He stole the keys from Adam. He's going to take it back though. Not Adam, but Jesus will. Okay? So, imperfectness came into the world. In every sense, some people was born with mental disorders, physical and mentally. Some people was born, that's why you had the deformed babies, Tech syndrome, cerebral palsy, brains and stuff like that. I know people get mad and they get sad. It has nothing to do because God put a curse or nothing like that, or because of the parents. Now, some of those things are genetic, no doubt about it. Some of those things, babies came out the way because of drugs and alcohol or other things, diabetes or whatever. That's still part of the imperfect world since the fall of man. So, where did ADHD come from? First of all, I have to start with sin. Not because you and I sin, it's because we live in a sinful world. We live in an imperfect world. That means no one is born perfect. Some people born worse than others. Physical ailments, born handicapped, born with short arms. And different things. That's my point. I'm not going to stay on this, but I want to tell you my point when it comes in the biblical side. So I don't too much ask why I'm like that. Because I understand the imperfectness under the dispensation of grace, why many people, millions of people, are born this way. Okay? Or genetically, whatever way you want to look at it. So I don't question the whys. I don't look at the whys in a biblical perspective. Okay? So let's go back to the scientific perspective. Okay? Let's look at that. Which God created the brain. God created all this magnificent brain. The prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, all those stuff. The things that cause the neurotransmissions, the dopamine, the serotonin, the oxygen, and all them other waka names. Remember, God created the brain. The brain in Adam and Eve was perfect before they sinned. Then they understood knowledge. They understood good and evil. And sin corrupted everything else. So being born in sin is the number one cause of deficiencies and stuff like that, as well as people born with people that drink and smoke drugs. So you got to look at all that, but it still comes down to the fall of man. Sin made everything imperfect, no matter what happened after that. That's the biblical perspective. Let's get out of that, okay? As a Christian, okay? Now, that's the Christian perspective. Other faiths might believe differently, but that's the Christian perspective, But when it comes to scientific perspective, which is they the one just breaking down how the brain works and why, they don't even know the why. They still unknown what causes it. That's how awesome the brain is. Only God knows. That's why I say only God knows why I maladaptive daydreaming like I do. People been trying to figure out for over 100 years why ADHD is like this. They can tell you the little things that's not matching in your brain, or the little scar in your brain, and different things like this. See, all those are scientific guesses. But God knows exactly why we are like we are. Will we ever know? Probably not. Now, as a believer, I will when I go to the heavenly places. But if you're not, that's a different story. So let's talk about this. So I'm not too much into that. So as long as I'm here on the earth, God have scientists, and a lot of them are not Christians either, but they're good scientists that can help us, through psychology and through all kind of stuff to help us understand what's going on with the brain, because they have that God gift to do that. Okay? So never as a believer rule out therapists that's not Christians and all that, like some believers may do. You know, always remember God uses these people. He uses the doctors, good doctors I'm talking about, to help us. Why? Because there's no more signs and wonders and healing. There's no miraculous thing God is doing. And he wasn't doing it for the world anyway. He was mostly doing it for Israel. Another story. But my point is, if God was still in the signs and wonders business for the world, the hospitals could be cleaned up. You got all these fake preachers out there claiming they can heal them. Why do they always got to do it at the church? How come they don't go in the hospitals and just start praying over everybody and emptying out? One thing you want to think about, if they can heal people so much, how come they still wear glasses? How come you still wear glasses, but you telling somebody God can heal them from their short leg, or God can bring their child back to life? You still wear glasses and barely can see. It's just like a person that 500 pounds trying to tell another person how to eat right. You see the stupidity in that? So I try to be very realistic when I talk about things in both science and Christianity, a biblical perspective. Because you got both sides. And sometimes they just go together. God is using the world scientists and therapists to help everyone, including believers, no matter what the faith is. What they do still works. Now, if they start getting into hoodooism and all that other stuff and whatever like that, that's against your faith, that's a different thing, you know. But I'm just saying, you know, certain medicines they use, and I'm against pills and all that stuff, you don't need to take that if you just use some of the holistic ways to get yourself and your mind back together. Now, I wanted to leave it like that. You know, I was talking about identity in my last video. It's up to us as men and women to study, to understand our situation if we have been diagnosed or anecdotally understand that we suffer from maladaptive daydream MDD. Don't stop at MDD. Take some quizzes. Understand AD, because some of you may not have MDD, you may daydream a lot, but you may have more ADHD. You might even have OCD. You might just be a mind wanderer. And not MDD, because MDD is off the chart. MDD, you like going into a trance. It's almost like you're hypnotizing yourself, but you're still conscious of what's going on around you. That's different than being a split personality. I wanted to get that out there. So the next time I get into that, I told you I was going to look at it both ways. I want you to really understand what you have or may have. You still can have a very successful career. I'm doing some things I never done or thought of. I never even finished high school. The highest grade I went was 9th grade because of my learning disability and because of my MDD. But I still know more than a lot of people that's probably got a degree. Because especially all the technology and the education information now that we can learn, we can still grow and be successful while we suffer with maladaptive daydream or ADHD, OCD, autism, whatever. That's all I'm saying. I'm struggling also with eternal tremors, somatic anxiety, tremors. You feel like a vibration in your body, your whole body shake. And I'm getting over that because I'm learning techniques, relaxing techniques to get rid of that. I haven't done that in the last 2 weeks now because I self-medicate myself without pills and tablets. And I'm not knocking pills and tablets and nothing like that. I'm just saying God gave us this magnificent body to self-heal. Unless it get out of hand, but to self-heal ourselves from anxiety. But maladaptive daydreaming is a different cookie. You can stop the melody. You'll never stop daydreaming. But you can stop the melody dreaming like me. That can be stopped. But ADHD and autism is much harder. You really will have that the rest of your life. But you can learn how to cope with it. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, could you get rid of MDD? I have no doubt. Many people have, including myself. But when I say MDD, I'm talking about more of the mellow dreams. You still daydream. You still, might wander off. But you don't do the mellow stories or mellow movies anymore like myself. That's what I mean by 90% of maladaptive daydream. Maladaptive daydream also starts other things, man, like your sexual drive and your sexual way of thinking. It perverts it. Woo! It perverts it, man. So it's so much that ADHD, and maladaptive causes that perverts the way you think. Man, I'm telling you some real talk, people. And you probably experienced that. So it does not just stop of your dream. It affects so many other things in that. Yes, but Satan will use that to oppress you. No doubt. He will use those weaknesses that's already in you because the brain chemicals are out of whack to oppress you. He didn't put it there, but he will use it. That's what I wanted to get out there, okay? God bless you all. This is Joseph Brown with Real Talk. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to my channel. Until next time, this is Joseph Brown and me, myself, and MDD. God bless you. Love you. Peace out.